Hello there. My name is Kay Byfield, and this is your ArtSpeaks Studio moment from ArtSpeaks Studio in Dallas, Texas, where we offer courses online and in the studio, mostly in watercolor. And today's ArtSpeaks Studio moment is about balance, which is one of the organizational principles of design. Balance becomes very important because an artwork needs to appear to be balanced, just as things in the natural world need to be balanced in order to deal with gravity. Balance in two-dimensional art is virtual, it is not actual. Artists all have different lists of the organizing principles of art because of semantics, but the list I use is harmony, conflict, variety, dominance, repetition, gradation, and balance. And today we're talking about balance. In two-dimensional art, we talk about balance as virtual, not actual. And whenever two versions of the same element, and elements are line, size, shape, value, color, texture, and space, anytime any two versions of that are contrasted against one another, and one of them is smaller in quantity or proportion, and the other is larger in quantity or proportion, there will be a sense of different weights. And this is what we talk about when we're talking about balance, is the relative weights of the elements. So artists need to understand something about balance in order to make a good artwork. And what they're looking at is a sense of equilibrium in the picture plane. The way that the artist juxtaposes the elements in the picture will create a sense of balance. And today we're going to talk about the different ways to do that. Using a metaphorical seesaw in order to give the idea of balance, let's talk about the kinds of balance. One of the kinds of balance that artists use is what we call symmetrical or formal balance. And in that kind of balance, the two sides of the picture are exactly the same. If you cut it down the center, you would see that they are exactly the same, and therefore they are formally balanced. Another kind of balance is radial balance, whereas everything is in a circle, it balances all the way around. Again, if you cut it in half, you would have formal balance. But in this case, it's like a mandala, and all the way around, everything balances everything else. Ideally, as an artist, you want to do an artwork that is balanced, but not predictable. And formal balance and radial balance have a tendency to be predictable because both sides are the same. Now, there are ways to alter that, but it's not easy. It's much easier to create a balanced composition, but have it be more interesting if it's informally balanced, which means that the right side and the left side have equal weights, but they're different from one another. And the ways that we do this is we look at where the weight goes. So in general, dark colors are heavier than light colors. Warm colors are heavier than cool colors. Bright colors are heavier than dull colors. And bright colors are heavier than their dull complement, as we see with this blue ball and the dull orange ball. And anytime that we have one version of an element that is in any kind of an arrangement, as it is in this photograph of the texture of the ground that is dry, anytime we have a contrast between the texture in the majority of the piece, and then you have smaller texture and lighter texture in one area, that becomes the focal point, and that will have greater weight. So the composition would balance regardless of which way you turned it because of the small stone contrasted against the large cracks in the rest of this photograph. So as you can imagine, this all gets very tricky when you're actually designing an artwork, because not only do you have bright and dull and light and dark and warm and cool and textures that are big and small and shapes that are rounded and shapes that are angular, but you have to figure out which ones have the greater amount of weight. So the relative proportion of an element in the composition will make a big difference when we look at how much weight it actually has. Let me show you an example. In this piece that was in the 2021 member exhibition for the National Watercolor Society, the artist has created a painting that is all about balance based on contrast. Please notice that the bright yellow and red of the buoy contrasts against the dull colors of the water, and the geometric shape of the buoy contrasts against the organic shapes of the foam and the waves in the water. Also notice the placement of the buoy is over to the right, and all the darker and duller colors balance that smaller shape. The artwork is balanced, but the balance is informal, and it's based on a balance of contrasts which have different weights. You will find this to be true in many, many good artworks. Balance can be problematic. The artist needs to know where the weight is, and that should be in the focal point. And then those same elements need to be used other places differently where they don't have the same amount of weight except for mass. And that will create a sense of balance, which will make the painting interesting, move the eye around it, and make the viewer comfortable as they're looking at the piece. I hope this information is useful to you and that you are able to achieve balance in your own life. Until we meet again, I wish you happy painting.